Welcome back to the year 1983 as we continue our look at the Gobots toy line by Tonka. Last time, we learned of Tonka's partnership with Bandai to release its machine robo line in the United States under the name Gobots. We also took a look at Scooter, one of the heroic Guardians, and this time we'll be taking a look at another of the Guardians, Hans Cuff, here on Creed's Collection. Welcome back to another episode of Creed's Collection. Today we are looking at the terribly named Hans Cuff from the 1983 toy line Gobots by Tonka. Hans is a member of the Heroic Guardians and he handles law enforcement and security, primarily on the Gobots homeworld of Gobotron. Being a law enforcer, his vehicle mode as a Toyota Crown S110 police car is highly appropriate. And in this review, I'm going to show you a few things about Hans that make him superior to a Transformer of similar size and complexity. So let's go ahead and dive in. First thing, we're going to take a closer look at the front bumper, and it looks really nice. It's well modeled. And here's the back of the car. Bumper doesn't look quite as good, but that's because that's where the legs actually fold out. I do wish the rear window was painted black to match the two windows on the doors, but that's a small complaint. I mean, look at this guy next to two Hot Wheels cars. You wouldn't even know he could turn into a robot. And that's where he really shines. The quality of Hans Cuff is high. He's die-cast metal, and he even has see-through windows, and you can see all the details inside the cab. Hell, you can see the vents in the dashboard and the rear view mirror right there. That's pretty impressive because you don't usually see this level of detail on such a small transforming toy. It's usually reserved for much larger ones. And while we're on the subject of quality, these are actual rubber tires on the rims here. It makes him roll really well and it gives him an excellent level of traction when he's on the ground. And now to illustrate the differences in quality, let's bring in the Transformer Wind Charger for a comparison. Finally, the Wind Charger is back on Creed's Collection. Dude, you were just in an episode like a month ago. Shut your mouth and know your role, jabroni. Hey, will you just transform so we can get this comparison done? Fine, okay. Transformers have always been considered the cooler and higher quality toy when compared to Gobots. But look at these two compared to each other. Hans Cuff has a die-cast body, rubber tires, see-through windows, and a modeled interior. Wind Charger has none of those things. And while the larger Transformer offerings definitely did, they were much more expensive. Whereas these two sold for pretty much the same price at the time. And I'm sure it's obvious which one cost more to produce. Alright, now it's time to transform Hans into his robot mode. Start back here, you're going to flip this open like so, and do that on both sides. That's going to make his legs and lower body. Then you'll go ahead and flip him over, grab right here on the side, and pull this out. Then you have to slide it up, which is a flaw in the design because no matter what you do, it's loose here and it likes to fall down. It's a shame it's that way. But anyway, just grab this arm, flip it up, and flip it back down, and there you go. That is Hans in his robot mode. Now I'll take a quick 360-degree look at this mode, which unfortunately he does not shine in nearly as much as he does in vehicle mode. As we already established, his shoulder joints are really loose. They tend to fall down, and he also has a lot of trouble standing, but we'll get back to that in a second. First, we're going to go ahead and take a closer look at his face, which I think they did a pretty good job modeling. If you look closely at his head, it looks like he has on a helmet with the little visor, almost like the helmets they wore on Chips. And then of course his eyes to me look like aviator sunglasses. Or those high-vis shooting glasses. Either way, it gives him an appropriate police officer look. And now we're going to get back to that problem he has standing up. Back here on his back, he has the bulk of his car mode, and the problem is it makes him incredibly back heavy. So the only way to get him to stand was to fold a little piece of paper and put it under his heels. Otherwise, he was just going to keep falling backwards. It's an unfortunate design flaw, but it's there. Now we're going to take a look at Hans's articulation. Both of his arms can swivel all the way up and around 360 degrees, and both his knees can fold up thanks to his transformation. And that's it. That covers all of Hans's articulation. On the back of Hans's legs, you'll find his copyright information, Poppy, the division of Bandai that made him, 1983, Japan. And on his other leg, the MR13 stands for Machine Robo 13, as he was number 13 in the collection. And now for our He-Man size comparison. Hans is much smaller than He-Man and the rest of the Masters, so I think he's pretty glad that he doesn't have to keep peace on Eternia. He'd have a pretty hard time keeping those guys in line. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my toy review for Hans Cuff from the 1983 toy line Gobots by Tonka. Hans is a mixed bag here. He has a terrible name, but he has an amazing vehicle mode. Sadly, his robot mode is not nearly as great though, with loose arm joints that like to fall and barely being able to stand without assistance. Problems aside though, I'm glad to have him in my collection, although I don't know if I'd recommend seeking him out if you don't already own him. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a thumbs up, and if you have any thoughts, please leave a comment. I love reading and responding to them. And while you're at it, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it and it would help my channel grow. I review a toy from my vintage collection every Wednesday, so I hope to see you next week and every week after, here on Creed's Collection.